Part 22. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 211. Next moment. The sword energy rushed into the enemy's formation vertically and horizontally, and there was no time to resist. In other words, any resistance would be useless under the sharpest sword in the world. In an instant, half of the rebels were annihilated like weeds under the brilliance of this sword. Who else dares to clear my side? Suliang took back his sword, his voice was calm and without any emotion. At this moment, everyone was frightened by this sword. How dare those rebels even have the slightest idea of resisting? Under the threat of Suliang's first appearance of the Overlord, more than half of the rebels dropped their weapons and surrendered. Volume 1 Chapter 196, Cutting Off the River with One Sword, Becoming the Overlord and the First Person on the Disaster List. Oh, rebels, that's all. Suliang shook his head and laughed twice, his voice full of indescribable joy. However, this rebellion is not over yet. The laughter ended quickly, and Suliang regained his composure. He clenched the sword in his hand and looked from a distance, facing the rebels across the sea. There were tens of thousands of allied troops from 10 directions, surrounding the imperial city. How could this formation be comparable to the thousands of rebels outside the city? At this moment, surrounded by these people, the imperial capital has become an isolated city. It's over, it's over. When the rebels invade the city, I'm afraid the people like us will have no way to survive. Why wait for the rebels to invade the city? As long as the rebels besiege us for several months and we have no food, can we still survive? This is a certain death situation. Your Majesty, please surrender. After surrendering, there is still a way to survive because of past friendship. If you stubbornly resist, Your Majesty will undoubtedly die, and the people will also suffer from Your Majesty. Under such a siege with almost no hope, the people inside and outside the city were all desperate. The princes loudly persuaded them to surrender, but they all felt that Suliang was destined to die at this moment. However, despite this, Suliang remained calm, as if the so-called rebels and the so-called surrender did not exist. At this moment, Suliang suddenly looked at Meiji beside him and said with a smile, "Meiji, come and play a piece of zither for me. This is my only request." Meiji also smiled softly, since His Majesty likes it, how can Meiji be willing to refuse? The piano was carried up, and Meiji sat in front of the piano, her soft and boneless hands gently stroking the strings, with a soft smile on her face, playing the piano, but her eyes were always looking at Su beside her. Good. Suliang simply sat on the ground next to Meiji. He found a wine glass from somewhere. The wine in the glass was mellow. As he drank the wine, Suliang had a faint smile on his lips, narrowed his eyes, and listened to the music leisurely. At this moment, the mood was at its peak, and the music of the piano was melodious and passionate. The listeners were so excited that they couldn't help but rush out and have a fight. Suliang was so mesmerized by this that he drank the wine in one gulp and waved his hand, causing the white jade wine glass to fall on the ground, completely shattered. At this time, the music is about to end. Suliang's movements were like the horn that started the war. As the jade cup shattered and the music ended, in the distance, the coalition forces blew the horn, the horses galloped, and the soldiers roared. At this moment, the coalition troops came out in full force. The overwhelming murderous intent rushed towards the king standing on the city wall, as if he wanted to kill the king to pieces, no matter how difficult it was to get ahead. Come on though. Suliang Yang laughed loudly, and there was an indescribable sense of joy in his laughter. How dare you, a mere youngster, to have any ideas about me? The words have fallen. Bass. The sound of the majestic sword was played. This time, the sound of the sword penetrated the heaven and the earth. Even the white clouds in the sky were torn to pieces by the sword. At the moment when the sound of swords sounded, all the coalition forces in the distance stopped, covered their ears, and bent down in pain. At this moment, they felt as if thousands of steel needles were entering their ears, and the pain was unbearable. Even the war horses neighed and fell to the ground, unable to get up again. Immediately afterwards, cut! A shout suddenly erupted in the direction of Suliang, and then, a sword light that was about to penetrate the world spread out from the city wall and slashed down. Boom! A loud roar erupted, and at this moment, it was like the end of the world, with the earth shaking and the mountains shaking, and the sky darkening. Under this sword, the river that traversed the battlefield was penetrated vertically, and a deep valley with invisible bottom appeared in front of everyone. On both sides of the valley, gravel rolled and soil rolled up, forming two hills. Just general stuff. And the surging river is cut off by these two hills and is almost overflowing. I don't know how long it will take to climb up the hills, fill the abyss, and merge again. The abyss crosses the river, but it has not stopped yet. It spreads vertically and horizontally until it is almost out of reach of the human eye. Everything on it, whether it is the coalition forces or the vegetation, has all turned into powder and disappeared. At this moment, the whole world seemed to be quiet. Everyone stared at the scene in front of them in stunned silence, speechless for a long time. Cutting off the river with one sword, changing the heaven and earth, and destroying the princes from all directions, what a heaven-reaching method this is. The king's sword shocked the world, and actually formed a miracle in the future, a line of sky. The people in the city, no matter the common people, civil and military officials, or the rebels who had surrendered before, all looked at the king standing on the top of the city at this moment, with deep horror in their eyes. No one thought that this king, who had not been in court for 10 years, delegated power to his ministers, and seemed harmless to humans and animals, turned out to be an unparalleled strong man. Just when the rebels were everywhere and had already attacked outside the imperial capital, this king, with one man and one sword, changed the world and saved the building from falling. Oh, just a rebel, nothing more. Suliang sheathed his sword, laughed heartily again, pulled up Meiji beside him, and said with a smile, "Meiji, come back and have a few drinks with me." Then, the mutiny that had been planned for a long time was quickly put down in a very short period of time. From then on, Suliang was vaguely crowned with the title of overlord. Within the dynasty, the undercurrent was calmed down, the people lived in peace and contentment, and thousands of people came to the dynasty. In a short period of time, the strength of the dynasty developed to an extremely tyrannical level. But just when the situation was great, one day, there was a bright light in the sky, and then there was a vision from the sky, and a list appeared in the world. The list was strange and scarlet, and seemed to exude ominousness. This list, called the disaster list, is specially designed to rank and comment on the stunning women in the world. 10th place, flowers are ruthless, fallen flowers are ruthless, and ruthless flowers are asking. She was born with a beautiful appearance, so she lives in seclusion in the mountains and cuts off all contact. She is the coldest fairy in the world. 6th place, Zhu Wei, is a holy girl from the Huangzai section. She is enchanting and has a natural charm. It is rare for men in the world not to fall in love with her. She practices ruthlessness and still retains her purity due to her status as a saint. 4th place, Chen Ziyun, is the dynasty's best catcher. He solves cases like a god and cares about people's livelihood. He is a rare and stunning catcher in ancient and modern times. He is very popular. 3rd place, Qin Xuexin, the head of the section. He is upright and fiery. He takes it as his own duty to eliminate demons and protect the Tao throughout his life. He has no intention of love. The 2nd place is Xue Jianyao, the chief of the sword sect, the Qingleng sword fairy, who has perfected the sword's heart, cut off love and desire, and has been appointed as the sword master of the sword section. The 1st place is Meiji, a noble concubine of the imperial dynasty who brought disaster to the world and destroyed the country. The reincarnation of King Cao Ninetales brought disaster to the country and the people, and devoured the fate of a country for her own cultivation. The women introduced on the list are all famous people. Many of them, regardless of their character, experience, or beauty, are broadcast to the world. Therefore, in the eyes of everyone, this list is a sign of heaven. Extremely reliable. And that's why. When the people of the dynasty saw the evaluation of the number one concubine named Meiji, they immediately set off a craze and the whole country was in an uproar. The imperial concubine turned out to be a monster that subjugated the country, and wanted to devour the fate of a country for her own cultivation? How can this work? The previous rebel war was because of this queen mother who brought disaster to the country and the people, but now, even the law of heaven evaluates her like this. If she doesn't care about it anymore, I am afraid that this huge dynasty will be destroyed in her hands. This kind of disaster must not be allowed to stay. Then, from this moment on, all the people in the dynasty petitioned Your Majesty to kill this witch. From the people in various cities going to Beijing overnight, or entrusting government officials to jointly submit a memorial, to the people in Kyoto kneeling and worshipping outside the palace, crying out in pain day and night, for a time, the palace was extremely lively. Public opinion is overwhelming. Faced with this situation of nationwide petition, even the peerless overlord in the palace cannot ignore it. In the palace, this news was also known to Meiji. The maidservant served beside Meiji with a look of worry and fear on her face. She couldn't help but ask, "My dear concubine, the people who came from Kyoto and everywhere have been kneeling outside the palace for a long time. At this moment, the whole country, they are all petitioning Your Majesty to have you killed. What should we do?" This servant is worried that, His Majesty will. Facing the maid's worry and fear, Meiji was extremely calm. She just told the maid, "Don't think too much. Come, help me put on my makeup. I want to go to see the king with the most charming charm." The maid hesitated for a moment, unable to understand Meiji's thoughts at all, but after all, it was Meiji's request, so the maid could only follow the teacher's instructions and began to dress Meiji. After dressing up, Meiji changed into a gorgeous outfit and waited for a while, finally waiting for Suliang to come back. "Concubine, please see Your Majesty." Meiji's gorgeous makeup and gorgeous clothes added a bit of grace and elegance to her charming feeling. At this moment, she faced Suliang and bowed her head, full of charm. Before Suliang could say anything, Meiji came to Suliang's side, held her soft and boneless jade hand in Suliang's hand, and said softly, "Come, Your Majesty, let me help you change your clothes and take a bath." Suliang looked at Meiji for a moment and nodded, "Okay." When Suliang finished bathing and returned to the palace, he saw that Meiji was already lying on the bed as a matter of course, with a soft look, waving to Suliang, "Your Majesty, come quickly, I am waiting for you. It's been a long time." Suliang blinked, walked forward, leaned over, and suppressed Meiji under him. This time, Meiji took the initiative, many times in a row. For her, this was the last warmth between her and the king. After all, it's best to leave no regrets. After a long time, everything calmed down in the room, and after enjoying the last warmth, Meiji lay in Suliang's arms, biting her red lips with her teeth, and volunteered, "Your Majesty, I already know what happened outside. I also know the king's thoughts about me very well, so the king must not want to hurt me, right? However, I don't want the king to be in trouble because of me, and I will act against the will of the people. I must not harm the king. So, I want to die with all my heart, so please allow me to do so." Seeing that Meiji actually asked for death, Suliang's expression became extremely cold, and the overbearing pressure seeped out of him. "Have you thought about it?" Suliang asked, his voice extremely cold. "I have thought about it," Meiji nodded, holding back tears, looking at Suliang with a humble look. She is not afraid of death. In fact, if she can solve the king's predicament at this time, even if she dies, what's the harm? But I feel so reluctant to leave the king. From now on, will I never be able to touch the king again? I really want to be by your side for the rest of my life. But right now? Snapped. Suliang actually took action directly and slapped the round and straight spot behind Meiji. With this slap, Suliang did not spare any effort. It was a powerful and heavy slap, and the sound was clear and loud. It was a direct slap that made Meiji burst into tears. It hurt so much that it could be said to be a very harsh punishment. Covering her back, Meiji stared at Suliang with tearful eyes, very confused. "Your Majesty, what are you doing?" The words just fell. Snapped. Suliang slapped Meiji behind her again. This slap was even stronger than the one just now. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 212. Well. Meiji snorted softly, her eyes were red and tears were about to fall. She looked at Suliang with a look full of grievances, and she looked even more pitiful. However, Suliang, who had always doted on Meiji in the past, acted as if he didn't see it this time. Instead, he asked, "Still don't understand?" After hearing this, Meiji shook her head, but after a moment of hesitation, she nodded again, as if she understood something. Well. Suliang sighed, hugged Meiji lovingly, touched her head, and promised, "Don't think so much, I promise you, as long as you don't leave, I will never give up, no matter what public opinion, what list, for as far as I'm concerned, it's not as good as yours." "Well, Your Majesty." Meiji bit her teeth lightly, but her tears flowed out. She was so moved that she lay directly in Suliang's arms and started sobbing softly. For a moment, she couldn't even speak. Suliang didn't say much, he just patted Meiji on the back with a gentle smile and comforted her in a low voice. After a while, Meiji raised her head, wiped the tears from her face, and asked, then, "Your Majesty, what should we do about the situation outside?" Hearing this, Suliang chuckled and said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of everything as long as I'm here." "Oh, no one can touch my people." "What about all the people and God's will? Who dares to talk too much, I will never offend him." Then, to prove this, Suliang actually directly disobeyed God's will. From that day on, Suliang led his army to fight in the north and south, and personally took action. The sky was dark and the earth was dark, and the people were mourning everywhere. In just 3 years, Suliang annexed neighboring countries, making the dynasty one of the few powerful countries in the world. But even the few powerful dynasty countries that can rival Suliang will never dare to provoke Suliang easily. And at this moment, another vision came from the sky, and a new list was released. This list is called the King List. Among them, Suliang Zheng ranks first. Volume 1 # Chapter 197 Do you want me, Cao Thief again? The Queen's Request. Suliang, the unparalleled overlord in ancient and modern times. If I'm happy, I'll be under one person. If I'm not happy, I'll be under one person. Such an evaluation is rare in ancient and modern times. The picture in front of him was shattered like a mirror. Suliang opened his eyes and finally woke up. In the previous life, she brought disaster to the country and its people, and was a goddess who destroyed the country. You are the overlord of a country and a peerless master. The demon girl has evil intentions. From now on, the king will not go to court early. People's hearts will be greedy and rebellion, which is natural. But the demon girl sent by God will bring disaster to the country. The whole people will ask for her life. People will be panic, which is natural. With one man and one sword, you cut off the river with one sword and killed the rebels. You fought for 3 years and destroyed the neighboring countries. God gave you the title of Overlord, but you only made peace for the beauty. This simulation is over. Congratulations to the host, you have received the reward, Overlord body, disabled. The Overlord body, innate divine power, indestructible adamantine, can overwhelm the common people, and win the reputation of an undying Overlord. The complete Overlord body can only be obtained by completing a complete simulation. At the current stage, the only physical enhancement is available. Well, Overlord body? His, innate divine power, indestructible adamantine, and the power to overwhelm all living beings. Isn't this thing a bit too strong? Although now he only has a damaged physique and can only gain physical fitness, Suliang is very satisfied. At this time, the system's voice appeared again. 3-star Cao Thief passed the assessment for half a month. Is love a multiple choice question or a single choice question? Please search for the answer yourself within half a month. Hearing this, Suliang was extremely confused. Where are all this, what love, what multiple choice single choice questions, what the hell is this? I don't understand at all, how can I accomplish this? In desperation, Suliang had no choice but to ignore the assessment for the time being and began to think about the current clues. The object of my fourth simulation was none other than the Queen Mother Qin Wanyu of Great Xia, but the protagonist happened to be Ying Kaoch, the cousin of my girlfriend. According to my experience in the previous 3 simulations, normally, the protagonist and myself should have a hostile relationship. No matter why, the protagonist duo should exclude himself. Only in this way can he defeat the protagonist, win the beauty, and achieve the achievement of being a thief. Just like Lin Feng and Qin Binjiao, Ren Changsheng, and Tan Qinjia. But this time, it's completely different. Suliang thought about it carefully and found that this time, not only did the protagonist Ying Kaoch not reject him at all, but he seemed to have a good relationship with him. In fact, Qin Wanyu, the simulation object, has a hostile relationship with herself. After all, when they met just now, the Queen Mother used illusions, killers, and other methods to deal with her. This can't be called a good relationship, right? Is this completely the opposite? Moreover, these two people, one is the eldest Princess Ying Kaoch, the future Empress, and the other is the Queen Mother Qin Wanyu. No matter how you think about it, they have nothing to do with Cao. Why is Cao a thief? Who is the thief Cao? Suliang didn't want to use it at all. For a moment, Suliang only felt that there were many doubts in this. This time, he could not figure out the purpose of the system at all. It's just outrageous. At the same time Suliang woke up. In the Queen Mother's palace. Ah! The Queen Mother screamed and woke up from her dream. She slowly opened her eyes and sat up. There was a trace of surprise on her beautiful cheeks. Qin Wanyu was wearing a tulle, but there were some wrinkles due to her unsteady sleep. The tulle slipped off her shoulders, revealing her snow-white smooth shoulders, proud peaks, and plump and slender legs. Underneath the gauze, it's crystal clear. Rubbing her forehead and biting her lower lip, Qin Wanyu kept recalling everything in her dream. From today on, these 10 years of hazy dreams are finally connected. However, the scene in the dream made Qin Wanyu feel melancholy and confused. Standing up, walking to the bedside and looking at the moonlight in the sky, Qin Wanyu's eyes were hazy. These 10 years of hazy dreams are extremely clear and full of details. They have always given me a very familiar feeling. No matter how you look at them, they don't look like simple dreams. So, is this my previous life? Is this the invisible cause and effect that Taoist master once said? But, what does all this have to do with Suliang? She was deep in thought, but soon, Qin Wanyu couldn't think about it anymore. She found that as Suliang's impression became clearer and clearer in her mind, She actually had an impatient thought in her heart. I want to see him again. Now, I just want to see him again. No matter when, I want to see him. But, no. This is absolutely not okay. Clenching her fists tightly, Qin Wanyu tried hard to suppress the emergence of such thoughts. I am me, how can I be affected by so-called past lives and so-called dreams? If Qin Benjio were here, she would find that these words sound familiar. At the same time, Qin Benjio found her cousin and reluctantly followed her cousin back to her residence. I just said that I would ignore Sulang tonight and go to sleep with Sister Ying, but I turned around and was sent back by Sister Ying. Don't you want to lose face? There must be some people in Asia and Europe who were laughed at by Sulang. However, when she walked in the door and saw Sulang's frowning and thinking look, she instantly became considerate and concerned. She came to Sulang and asked, Sulang, what's wrong? Are you in some kind of trouble or are you having a nightmare, awakened? Sulang, be good, Yao is right here, don't be afraid, don't be afraid. I can't harden my heart at all. But soon, Qin Benjio woke up when she saw the rope that was thrown on the ground but had not yet been thrown out. No, aren't you still having trouble with Sulang? If you care about Sulang so diligently, where should you put your face? Moreover, it seems that Sulang is fine, so it should be okay for him to ignore Sulang, right? Then, Qin Benjio decisively let go of Sulang, stood aside, held her head high, turned her face away, pretending to be disgusted. Humph, you are worthy of Sulang for being decisive. I was just absent for a while, why did I end up like this? It's really embarrassing. LA. Tsundere Ferry, online card dealing sequelae of Rope Bondage Limited Edition. Yang Kaoj couldn't help but laugh when he saw Qin Benjio's changes. He couldn't help but cover his face with his sleeves and almost laughed out loud. After finally suppressing his smile, Yang Kaoj pretended to be serious and said calmly, Benjio, please wait outside the door and let me talk to Sulang alone. Immediately, he leaned closer to Qin Benjio and whispered, don't worry, I'm here to help you ease the atmosphere. Hearing this, Qin Benjio smiled and hugged her sister. Hey, it's best to win against my sister. Immediately, he jumped out and walked out. Then, in the room, only Sulang and Yang Kaoj were left alone. The atmosphere was silent for a moment, and Sulyangbian began to take the initiative to explain, just now, the Queen Mother summoned me alone to meet with me, but she wanted to use illusions to charm and control me. After I saw through it, she let me leave. It's just that I see that the Queen Mother's illusion and charm method is extremely profound and complex in structure. From the moment she enters the room, from the incense, the environment, to her every move and every word, she is all exerting illusion and charm. This kind of illusion charm, even a master of illusion or a person with advanced cultivation, will find it difficult to resist, fall into it, and cannot distinguish between illusion and reality. It is very powerful. But, this kind of advanced illusion and charm method should only be possessed by some top sex, right? The Queen Mother, how can she possess it? After hearing this, Yang Kaoj thought for a moment and said, perhaps the Queen Mother comes from those top sects. There is a prohibition in the world of cultivating immortals that sects are not allowed to interfere with the operation of the dynasty. Therefore, in these thousands of years, no sect of cultivating immortals has ever interfered with the dynasty. However, according to the intelligence that I have obtained during this period, there may be a powerful force behind the Queen Mother. And this force is quietly infiltrating our great Xia dynasty. I see. Sulyang looked understanding and nodded, I see, human greed will not be affected by the so-called ban after all. On the surface, it seems that those sects do not dare to act rashly, but in private, who knows who will take action to infiltrate. Exactly. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Wo Meng. Chapter 213. Ying Kaoj nodded, but then he bowed and bowed Ying. And with Ying Kaoj's movements, the pair of proud peaks on her chest trembled slightly, and a deep valley was revealed from above. It was initially majestic, and became deeper with the squeeze of the movements. That flat belly, with the squeezing, did not show any unnecessary traces. It was still flat and smooth, and the proportions were simply perfect. Although she was bowing to people, Ying Kaoj still had a graceful figure at this moment, and that sense of elegance and luxury almost penetrated into her bones. Immediately afterwards, Ying Kaoj asked, "I hope Mr. Su can work with Benjeo to help me put things right. Although I, Daxia, have no friendship with Mr. Su, I can still be regarded as Benjeo's family. For Benjeo's sake, I ask Mr. Su to help Benjeo together." Suliang raised his eyebrows slightly and asked curiously, "What is your goal? Is it to ascend the throne and become emperor? There should be a lot of resistance to this matter, right?" Hearing this, Ying Kaoj straightened up and said with some melancholy, "Master Su is so wise, he should also understand that there are some things that I am not willing to do, but have to do. Even if I have to risk the disapproval of the world." "I see." Suliang nodded, but then he changed the topic and said, "Okay, business is business. No matter who wants to get help, they have to pay a price. Since you want Benjeo and I to help, then of course you should pay a corresponding price. It doesn't matter to Benjeo and I, but our Tiandeo sect is still a weak ordinary section. You also know that the development of a sect requires resources. Tell me, what can you give me? If it's suitable, Benjeo and I wouldn't mind taking action." As he spoke, Suliang adopted a business-like attitude, serious, rigorous, and forceful. He almost felt like he and Ying Kaoj were strangers. In this way, he began to help Tiandeo sect fight for its interests. Volume 1 # Chapter 198 You should call me Aunt Chin. There is absolutely no need to be merciful just because Ying Kaoj is related to his girlfriend's cousins. After all, we are more or less a businessman. So far, our stockings are selling well. A businessman is a sober businessman. Do you want me to show mercy? No way. Don't tell me that you are just my girlfriend's cousin. Even if you are a biological sister, you still have to ask for what you deserve." After hearing Suliang's words, Ying Kaoj looked at Suliang with wide eyes. He could hardly maintain his cold, arrogant, and noble expression, and was extremely shocked. "You are not a disciple of the immortal sect, why have you become such a Philistine? I am Benjeo's cousin, and Daxia is considered Benjeo's family. Now that Daxia is in trouble, Benjeo should help, right? That's it. You still want to take some benefits from me? I admit, we all have a dirty mind when it comes to playing politics, but how come you, a disciple of the immortal sect, are dirtier than us?" But soon, Ying Kaoj came back to his senses and took a deep look at Suliang. After all, Suliang was a proud son of the immortal section. Not only was he very good at cultivation, he seemed to have many special means, which could at least resist the Queen Mother's illusion charm. Coupled with the high-level combat power of his cousin, even if he pays a certain price, he will not suffer a loss by cooperating with them. Moreover, Ying Kaoj knew that there would indeed be many places where Suliang and Qin Benjeo would be needed in the future. Then, Ying Kaoj nodded, "Okay, you and Benjeo help me, and I'll give you a reward that satisfies you. Once the cooperation is reached, it's a deal." "It's a deal." Suliang nodded and asked, "What do you need me to do?" Ying Kaoj thought for a while and said without any politeness, "The next step is the long-prepared celebration, and above the celebration, the Taiwang bell needs to be sounded. The bell rings 9 times, which means that the Great Xia is prosperous. It is a symbol, but it is very difficult to make the Taewang bell ring 9 times. If possible, please ring the Taewang bell at the celebration. The bell will ring 9 times. This is to facilitate and stabilize people's hearts, and at the same time, it is also to build momentum for this palace. As she slowly told the story, Yang Keoj didn't hide anything and told Suliang all about her purpose. In fact, she also knew that even if she had something to hide, Suliang could guess it. In this case, it is better to tell him directly, lest he think that he has reservations and make him unhappy. Okay, I'll do my best. Suliang nodded and agreed. Immediately. After touching his chin and thinking for a moment, Suliang asked, the little jade pendant gift that was included in the envelope you sent to Benjeo before. I think it has the aura of the Qing Emperor on it. Based on this calculation, in Daxia, I am afraid that there is a high possibility that there is a Qing Emperor inheritance. Do you know about the inheritance of Qing Emperor? For example, where is the legend about this, or where is the inheritance of Qingdi? After hearing this, Yang Keoj thought for a while, but said with some uncertainty, I can't be sure about this either. That jade pendant is just a small object in a tidal mouth that erupted not long ago. It's difficult to be sure. Is it related to the inheritance you mentioned? If it's an ordinary place, it wouldn't hurt to send someone to investigate. However, entry there can only be done during the outbreak period, and there are still 7 days until the next outbreak. Since you are interested in this, I will take you there when the time comes. It's a deal. Suliang nodded and agreed. After some negotiation and exchange of interests, Suliang and Yang Keoj were both satisfied with what they got. It was a very pleasant negotiation. After the negotiation ended, Yang Keoj said goodbye to Suliang, turned around and walked out. However, as soon as he went out, he saw Qin Benjeo standing at the door, pouting, still looking a little angry. After blinking, Yang Keoj walked to his sister and asked in confusion, Benjeo, why are you still angry? Where did Suliang bully you? In Yang Keoj's impression, her sister has a very good personality and is very tolerant. She doesn't get angry easily. Even if she gets angry, she can recover in a moment. She has never seen her sister being raped by something so angry. Oh, Sister Ying, I can't explain it to you clearly. Qin Benjeo shook her head, turned to look at her elegant cousin, but her dark thoughts arose, and she revealed an inexplicable smile, Sister Ying wants to know so much, why not experience it for yourself? Okay, okay. Yang Keoj nodded and didn't care at all. After all, what could his hot, cold, arrogant, and pure sister do to him? Even though Benjeo is indeed a little more lively when she comes back this time, she is still very pure and cute. Then, Yang Keoj followed Qin Benjeo to the room, and then was tied up. The technique used by Qin Benjeo was exactly the same as Suliang's, and it was much more exquisite than what Suliang had done. How could Yang Chao Ji bear this stimulation? Bing, Benjeo, what are you doing? Yang Keoj lay on the bed, letting the rope show off the best parts of his body, and looked at his sister in confusion. Looking at her sister's tall and proud peaks, flat belly, and slender legs, Qin Benjeo had a smile on her face, but exuded an evil feeling all over her body. She rubbed her hands and kept getting closer to Yang Keoj. Sister Ying, don't blame me. You need to vent after all. Then, some very strange sounds came from the room. After this incident, Yang Keoj looked at Suliang with a strange look in his eyes, and intentionally or unintentionally, he would avoid Suliang and not dare to get close. This situation gave Suliang the feeling that people were avoiding him, as if they were avoiding scum. Suliang was very confused. In the Queen Mother's palace. One night passed, and Qin Wanyu not only failed to control herself, but she finally couldn't help it anymore. God knows what she went through that night. I was upset and couldn't sleep all night, with his figure filling my mind. It felt like I wouldn't feel at ease if I didn't see him. At dawn, Qin Wanyu couldn't bear it any longer, so she ordered, "Go and get ready, and serve the AI family to bathe and change clothes." Qin Wanyu leaned on the edge of the bathtub, with two maids by her side. They kept holding up the water with their hands, washing Qin Wanyu's already fair and smooth skin. Qin Wanyu stretched out her hand, and gently touched her collarbone with her slender, boneless hand, all the way down, across the proud peak, the flat belly, the deep valley, and finally stopped when she reached her smooth and white legs. "Come down." As if she was very satisfied with her body shape, Qin Wanyu showed a charming smile. Amidst the steaming heat, two blushes appeared on her already beautiful cheeks. Her beautiful eyes were shining with light, bright and charming. Extremely. After walking out of the warm pool and being wiped away by the maid, Qin Wanyu put on a gorgeous purple court dress. The purple court dress is gorgeous and gorgeous. The tube-top skirt wraps Qin Wanyu's body, tightly binding the pair of proud peaks, leaving only a trace of the deep valley. When the sleeves are waved, the lace decoration flickers in and out, which is very gorgeous. Qin Wanyu's purple court dress was dragged to the ground, and the straight part behind her was wrapped, highlighting her round and round silhouette. The corset long skirt wrapped a pair of plump and slender legs. Indistinctly, the jade legs covered by purple high-heeled boots were hidden. The feet are small and cute. With her hands folded in front of her chest, her head full of blue hair bound by a complicated crown, Qin Wanyu at this moment really used the word graceful and luxurious to the extreme. "Send someone." "No, the AI family will go there in person." Qin Wanyu waved her hand, and was about to send someone to invite Suliang to come over, but before she finished speaking, she changed her mind and planned to go see Suliang in person. "I don't want to see him, no, definitely not. This is just to figure out the cause and effect that surrounds you. Otherwise, you will never be able to achieve greatness in your life." Yes, that must be the case. With a secret murmur in her heart, Qin Wanyu defended herself and set off for Suliang's place. In front of Suliang. Setting out again, Queen Mother Qin Wanyu came to visit. The moment she saw Suliang, the graceful, dignified and majestic posture she had deliberately maintained completely collapsed. Moment. Qin Wanyu's face softened, and an extremely natural feeling of tenderness appeared on her face. Qin Wanyu felt her heart beating rapidly, and an indescribable emotional feeling appeared in her heart. Under the influence of the Sims, Qin Wanyu changed greatly. At this moment, she almost blurted out the word king. But when the words came to her lips, Qin Wanyu suppressed them in time. But even so, it was difficult for her to completely suppress the tender feeling, and it was difficult for her to maintain the graceful and majestic feeling. "The Queen Mother came here, why?" Suliang looked at Qin Wanyu in confusion. I'm going here, I want to discuss matters with you about ancestor worship. The entire Shengjing knows about your relationship with Benjeo. Although you are not of the blood of my Daxia royal family, after all, as a man of Benjeo, you are also qualified to participate in ancestor worship. This. After blinking, Suliang nodded and said, "That's fine, what do you think the Queen Mother has to say?" Pretending to hesitate, Qin Wanyu said, "This matter is not trivial. It is of great importance. We need to get closer to explain it clearly, in case the walls have ears." However, I don't know whether she said this to Suliang or to herself. Anyway. While Qin Wanyu was defending herself in her heart, all kinds of excuses were flying. Before coming, and even now, she wanted to be reserved and not have too much close contact with Suliang. But Suliang was right in front of her, but she unconsciously wanted to do all kinds of things. Then, without even Qin Wanyu noticing it, Qin Wanyu walked to Suliang consciously, sat down, and stood close to Suliang, almost touching her whole body. At the same time, Suliang felt mixed emotions in his heart when he saw the Queen Mother who was leaning against him so naturally, and inadvertently, her whole body pressed up against her. The distance was so close that Suliang could even feel the Queen Mother's fiery breath, the fragrance surrounding her nose, and Qin Huanyu's soft and delicate body, with those proud peaks squeezing him tightly. At this moment, Qin Huanyu's pretty face was slightly red, her eyes were shining with a strange light, and her whole person seemed to be much brighter. This is simply a mature and charming big sister. Suliang had to admit that Qin Huanyu was really alluring at this moment. It was so tempting that she couldn't help but want to do something. But fortunately, Suliang had achieved the Bodhi state of mind, and the towering Bodhi tree shone brightly, guarding his consciousness, allowing Suliang to endure it, and immediately broke away from Qin Huanyu's charm. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 214. Ahem. Suliang coughed lightly and couldn't help but remind her, "Madam, please respect yourself." And it was these words that made Qin Huanyu wake up. Seeing her body tightly pressed against Suliang's, Qin Huanyu felt ashamed and her pretty face was flushed, but she didn't want to leave. She bit her lower lip lightly. Qin Huanyu took the initiative to change her title and said softly, "Suliang, you can just call me Aunt Qin, there is no need to be too distant between you and me." Hearing this, Suliang subconsciously leaned back and looked at Qin Huanyu, who had a black question mark face on his face. "What the hell, why do you have to call yourself Aunt? It's okay to give myself a super double?" Seeing Suliang's reaction, Qin Huanyu immediately woke up and felt a little annoyed at her own reaction. "Aunt Qin, what's going on? I obviously wanted to restrain myself, but I couldn't. And yet, I said such shameful words. What should I do?" Ahem. With a few embarrassed coughs, Qin Huanyu defended, "I have a very good relationship with Benjao. They are as close as mother and son. She is someone I have seen since childhood. It is not too much for you to call me aunt. All right, let's forget it." Suliang shook his head. He refused this more intimate and ambiguous title. Originally, the Queen Mother was the one she was bound to, and she seemed to be his enemy. If she matched her normal status, it would be fine. But now, who can resist calling her aunt? However, faced with Suliang's rejection, the extremely charming Qin Huanyu pouted and scolded, "Why, you are still at a disadvantage when I ask you to call me aunt? Could it be that you are afraid that I will humiliate you, identity? I am the Queen Mother, not an ordinary woman. Although she is not as noble as you and Benjao and other immortal disciples, she is still prominent. Can't I still call you Aunt Qin? If you don't scream, I will go to Benjao to complain." There was undisguised stubbornness in everything she said, as if she wanted Suliang to call her aunt. This kind of resentment and stubbornness of an older lady has a different charm. It is really hard to bear. Suliang couldn't stand it at all, so he had to say reluctantly, okay, I agree. Qin, Aunt Qin. But I didn't expect it." His title made Qin Huanyu inexplicably excited. Volume 1 # Chapter 199. The disheveled Queen Mother. The celebration started, and the bell rang 9 times. In Suliang's eyes, Qin Huanyu's eyes were shining with excitement at this moment, and the graceful and charming smile on her face gradually became excited. Her whole person seemed to be excited because of this inexplicable excitement. And trembled. Before Suliang could figure out why Qin Huanyu was excited, Qin Huanyu started to tease Suliang directly. "I saw." Qin Huanyu stretched out her tender white fingers, pinched Suliang's chin, spit out her fragrant tongue, and licked her red lips. Her voice was filled with indescribable excitement and charm. "Say a few more words and listen, little brother Su. Call me aunt, I love hearing it." At this moment, Suliang was completely stunned. He just called her aunt. As for such a big reaction? Madam, you are the Queen Mother, how could you treat me like this? If this matter spreads, I am afraid that Daxia's reputation will be ruined, right? And one or two of them were so bold and flirted with me at will. Do you really think I have no temper? It is unbearable. Thinking in his mind, Suliang had a straight face and said in a deep voice, Queen Mother, you have gone too far. However, unexpectedly, facing Suliang's words, Qin Wanyu grabbed Suliang's arm with both hands, threw herself on Suliang, rubbed up and down, left and right, and said coquettishly, No, no, I've never been shouted at like this before, so just shout twice more. Following Qin Wanyu's movements, her pair of proud peaks squeezed Suliang's body. The extraordinary softness and elasticity, following her movements, squeezed back and forth, deformed, and swayed, giving people an indescribable feeling. A feeling of. However, at this moment, Suliang not only did not feel embarrassed, but also felt a little darkened. Wow, you, the Queen Mother, are really deceiving others. Don't think that because you are the Queen Mother, I am afraid of you. You treat me like this, I can't bear it. Then. Suliang's face was calm and his voice was smooth as he said, Aunt Qin, since you want me to call you aunt, do you have to fulfill your duty as an aunt? What? Qin Wanyu blinked in confusion. For a moment, she didn't understand what Suliang meant. But then, suddenly, her slender waist was hugged by Suliang. Next moment, Suliang used a little force on his arm to pull Qin Wanyu in front of him. You, what do you want to do? Qin Wanyu looked at Suliang in confusion, nervously, feeling that her heart was beating so fast that she couldn't even speak completely. Immediately. Then they saw that Suliang was lying directly on Qin Wanyu's chest without saying a word. On top of the pair of proud peaks, he felt the softness, elasticity, and smoothness in front of him. The fragrance of milk on the tip of his nose was fragrant. Suliang enjoyed moving back and forth. Not only that. With his head buried in the peak, Suliang said vaguely, Qin Yi, I'm just a child. In an instant, Qin Wanyu understood what Suliang meant, and her cheeks immediately turned red with embarrassment. Not only that. Feeling the thrill that she had never experienced before on her proud peak, Suliang's hot breath hit her body as she spoke. The moist but hot feeling made her simply unbearable and made her unbearably embarrassed. I have something to do, so I'll leave first. Qin Wanyu quickly pushed Suliang away, stood up, and left, walking quickly. When going out, Qin Wanyu vaguely seemed to see the inexplicable smile on Suliang's face. After Qin Wanyu completely stayed away from Suliang's room and found a deserted corner, Qin Wanyu finally stopped. At this moment, Qin Wanyu's clothes were intact, her expression was calm, her hands were folded and placed in front of her belly. She looked elegant, without any clues. However, in her heart, there were turbulent waves and turbulence. Recalling what I did today, I unconsciously approached Suliang and asked him to call me Aunt Qin. She also acted coquettishly and blamed. Even if you don't mention your own purpose, as an elder, you can't do this with a younger man. This, how unbecoming is this? In the future, how will people go to see Suliang and Qin Benjeo? For a moment, Qin Wanyu felt ashamed, and rarely could she control herself. Time passed, and finally, the day came for the celebration. On the day of the celebration, countless dignitaries were present. A group of royal family members stood in high positions, and the people below watched. It was very lively. It can be said to be the most solemn event in Great Xia. After the speech, it was soon time to ring the Taiwang bell. And when the voice of Ying Keoj announcing the start fell, a middle-aged man walked out of the crowd, saluted in front of Ying Keoj, and said respectfully, Your Highness, I, the Lin family, have a proud son who I have cultivated for more than 10 years. Now, he has achieved some success. Can you let Kwanzaa try it, Ichiban? As soon as he finished speaking, everyone started talking. This is the proud son of the Lin family. After all, the Lin family is the top aristocratic family in Shengjing. The proud son cultivated by such a force must be very powerful. Yang Kaoj looked calm and showed no emotion. He just nodded and said, yes. Then a young man walked out from the crowd, came to the Taewang bell, and rang the Taewang bell. The bell rang once and the young man was able to do it with ease. The bell rang twice and the boy's face turned red and he was a little tired. The bell rang 3 times and the boy was sweating like rain and he had no strength anymore. After Earl and the other young men retreated, another old man with extraordinary bearing walked out of the crowd and saluted respectfully, Your Highness, the grandson of an old minister, is quite talented. He has been practicing hard at home for several years and has achieved some achievements. Can you, just let him try? When the old man appeared, it aroused heated discussion among those present. The old man was a famous minister of the dynasty. He held a high position when he was the first emperor. Now, he is a very famous minister and his position is extremely prominent. Can? Yang Kaoj nodded and said nothing more. Then the old man's grandson walked out of the crowd, came to the Taewang bell, and rang the Taewang bell with all his strength. But this time, Taewang bell only rang 4 times. Although it was stronger than the previous one, it was still not enough. After the old man's grandson left the stage, another man with a cold face and full of sharpness walked out of the crowd, saluted Yang Kaoj and said, Your Highness, I would like to give it a try. Seeing this person walking out, everyone became excited. This man is a famous general in Daxia. Since his birth, he has won consecutive battles, mostly with less and more. He has never been defeated so far. He has a very high status in the hearts of the people of Daxia. Please. Even Yang Kaoj paid some attention to this person and made a gesture. The man came to the Taewang bell and calmed down. Then, under the expectant gazes of everyone, he shouted in a deep voice and struck the Taewang bell. But this time, the Taewang bell rang 5 times in a row, which gave everyone great confidence. However, just after 5 blows, the man fell to the ground. He was exhausted and could no longer knock. From then on, everyone from the proud men cultivated by various parties to the famous military generals took turns to try, but in the end, they only sounded 5 times. Looking at it, the perfection of Juxia is still far away. Everyone present looked expectant and excited at the beginning, but by the end, they were a little numb. It seems that everyone feels that no one can ring 9 times. And at this moment, Yang Kaoj gave Suliang a look. It's your turn. Suliang nodded, stepped out, and said loudly, Your Highness, can you let me try? The arrogant men cultivated by the powerful people from all over the world, and even the famous generals in the world, had failed, but at this time, Suliang stood up. Everyone looked at Suliang with a kind of numbness in their eyes, neither sad nor happy, and many people even didn't pay attention. Suliang is the proud son of the immortal family and Qin Binjao's man. They dare not ridicule him, but no one thinks that Suliang can succeed. After all, the pride of the immortal sect is just a pride. Is it really better than the pride cultivated by the powerful people from all walks of life, or even the famous generals? I'm afraid, at most, it's just a tie record. Under everyone's disbelieving gazes, Yang Kaoj nodded, Go ahead. Yes. Suliang cupped his fists in return, and then walked to the Taewang bell. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 215. Immediately afterwards. Under the gaze of everyone, Suliang took action, very easily and naturally, and rang the Taewang bell. The bell rang once, twice, 3 times, and 4 times. Seeing that Suliang was still at ease, everyone remained silent. After all, he is a proud son of the immortal section. The bell rings 4 times, which is just a normal operation. But then, the bell rang 5 times, already tying the previous record. At this time, Suliang still looked relaxed and at ease, without any sign of fatigue. At this time, everyone's expressions gradually changed. Suliang's performance really exceeded their expectations. Now, many people began to pay attention to Suliang. And immediately after, after 6 rings, the numbness and calmness in everyone's eyes gradually dissipated, and there was already some expectation in the eyes looking at Suliang. The bell rang 6 times with ease, maybe he could ring it 7 times. There was another sound, and the bell rang 7 times. Everyone couldn't help but swallow, feeling a little incredible. Could it be that he could ring 8 times? This is too strong. And just when the expectations and attention in everyone's hearts continued to rise, Suliang seemed to be somewhat familiar with the force of ringing the bell, and then there were ringings one after another. Dang, 9 rings. With 9 bells in his face, the country is at peace and the people are at peace. This is a sign of great prosperity. At this moment, everyone present was excited. They never expected that the 9 ringings of Taiwang bell, which they had not heard for many years, would be reproduced by Suliang again. Everyone had to admit that they had indeed underestimated this proud man. Many people who had previously sworn that Suliang had the best record now only feel their faces burning and hurting. Who could have imagined that the slap in the face would come so quickly? To be honest, a year after the death of the late emperor, both the courtiers and the people were all panic-stricken and greedy. However, the 9 ringing of the bell gave the people of Daxia a shot in the arm. The news of the bell ringing 9 times quickly spread throughout Daxia. At this moment, the whole country was excited. The bells ring 9 times, which is a sign of great prosperity. Our country, Daxia, will surely be in peace and prosperity. At this moment, looking at Suliang, who was still calm in front of the Taiwang bell, Qin Benjiao was filled with pride. Humph, this is my, Qin Benjiao's man. He can definitely do things that no one can do, and he can create miracles. Suliang is the most powerful. And Ying Kaoj, who was standing on the stage, was so excited that even Leng Ao could hardly maintain his composure. Before, it was indeed her deal with Suliang, hoping that Suliang would ring the Taiwang bell for her. But she didn't expect that Suliang could go so smoothly. This time, whether it was to stabilize the people's hearts or to build momentum for himself, his goals were all achieved perfectly. After ringing the bell, everything came to an end temporarily. Suliang, Qin Benjiao, and even Ying Kaoj had some leisure time. Now that she had free time, and it happened to be a lively time like the celebration, the first thing Qin Benjiao did was to leave her cousin behind, have a tryst with her man in Shengjing, and visit the bustling Shengjing during the celebration. However, just before Qin Benjiao found her man, Qin Wanyu took the initiative and came to the two of them. For the celebration, Qin Wanyu today is also wearing a purple dress, but compared to the previous clothes, today's dress has more luxurious decorations, with golden stripes embroidered on it, making it look very noble. Wearing a purple tube-top skirt under the gorgeous clothes, the pair of proud peaks, bound by the tube-top skirt, look even taller, upright, and stylish, as if they can seduce the soul. As soon as the ringing of the bells in the palace ended, Qin Wanyu came to Suliang, with a soft smile on her face and a gentle look, and said to Suliang and Qin Benjiao, "Suliang, today is the time of celebration, Shengjing City. It's very lively inside, so why not let me take you to visit?" But having said that, Qin Wanyu didn't seem to want to show others around at all. She clearly knew that Qin Benjiao wanted to take Suliang to visit Shengjing and come to make light bulbs. And now, since Qin Benjiao hasn't come yet, it's a good time to take Suliang away first. Looking at the Queen Mother in front of him, even though he was unwilling in his heart, Suliang had no good reason to refuse, so he had no choice but to agree, okay. With the Queen Mother personally entertaining him, Suliang's visit to the grand celebration was quite lively. On the way, Qin Wanyu took the initiative to hold Suliang's arm. That proud peak sandwiched Suliang's arm tightly and pressed against Suliang's body, constantly oppressing Suliang and bringing about a strange and unbearable feeling. It's overwhelming. Suliang, on the other hand, felt the soft but elastic, warm, smooth trembling sensation on his body and arms. His body trembled slightly, and he broke away from Qin Wanyu without leaving any trace. By the way, he also stayed away from Qin Wanyu. However, Suliang didn't expect that his behavior would make Qin Wanyu feel like she couldn't get what she wanted. But this feeling of not getting what she asked for made Qin Wanyu even more motivated, and she was filled with the feeling of wanting to conquer Suliang. Huh, you used to be able to do whatever you wanted, and you were even proactive about it. Why can't you do it now? Volume 1 Chapter 200, Whatever the king wishes, I will do whatever I want. This time, we must make him obedient. Then, along the way, Qin Wanyu launched a more fierce offensive against Suliang. Not only did she touch Suliang intentionally or unintentionally, but she pretended not to know afterwards. He would also take advantage of opportunities such as shopping to lie almost half of his body on Suliang's back or arms. Facing Qin Wanyu's various initiatives, Suliang kept feeling Qin Wanyu's proud peak, her soft and boneless hands, even her delicate body, and the refreshing fragrance of Qin Wanyu's body lingered on the tip of her nose. Even if he has a bodhisattva state of mind, he still feels pain and happiness. And just then, a few people were traveling together and indeed passed by a piano shop. Qin Wanyu stopped unconsciously and looked into the piano workshop, with a trace of nostalgia flashing in her eyes. When the store owner of the piano shop saw Qin Wanyu like this, he walked out of the store and took the initiative to invite, looking at the appearance of several customers, they are also people who know piano. Why don't you come in and take a look? Walking into the piano shop and looking at the pianos hanging everywhere in the piano shop, Qin Wanyu walked forward and touched the body of the piano with her slender hands, with a look of nostalgia in her eyes. At the same time, the memory in The Sims came to mind. The scene of the king sitting on the city wall and listening to the peerless enchantress playing the piano appeared in front of Suliang, which also gave Suliang a strange brilliance in his eyes. After watching the piano for a while, Qin Wanyu suddenly turned to look at Suliang, with a soft smile on her face. I have learned some piano skills, how about I play it for you? Hearing this, Suliang was startled. In his memory, the scene of the peerless enchantress holding the piano in her arms and playing a song for the king appeared in front of him again. Nodding, Suliang said, okay. Immediately. After picking out a piano that looked to be of very good quality, Qin Wanyu put the piano on the table, sat behind the table, looked at Suliang with her beautiful eyes, shining with dazzling light, and touched the piano with her slender hands. On the strings, plucked the strings. This moment. It was completely different from the passionate war song on the battlefield, but the melody of the song also made Suliang feel very familiar. During the 10 years of Buletin Zhao's reign, the king heard this melody countless times. This is the king's favorite song, and it is also the song Meiji plays best. However, although the melody is familiar, it is a bit stiff, as if the hands playing the piano have only memorized the melody but are not familiar with the playing techniques. See this. The memory of The Sims came to mind, and Suliang couldn't help but step forward and pointed out, the fingering here is wrong. If you do this, it will be smoother and clearer. While talking, Suliang unconsciously leaned down and lay on Qin Wanyu's back from behind. He held Qin Wanyu's hand with both hands and taught the difference in individual movements. Now, with the warm and fragrant nephrite in her arms, Qin Huanyu's slightly scattered hair hangs down and lingers on the tip of Suliang's nose, bringing bursts of fragrance. When she turns her head slightly, she will touch Qin Huanyu's smooth cheeks. The whole person was lying on Qin Huanyu's back, feeling the smoothness and softness of the junior, and the delicate and boneless hands in his hands. At this moment, the two of them were extremely close. However, even so, there were no distracting thoughts in the two people's minds. Just like in the dusty memory, the king taught the peerless charm girl how to play. Everything was so natural and smooth, without any evil thoughts. For a moment, this scene seemed a bit beautiful. After a while, Suliang left Qin Huanyu, nodded and said, "Okay, let's try playing it again." Qin Huanyu's eyes flashed with intense light, and she nodded softly, "I will do whatever you wish." Immediately, Qin Huanyu's beautiful eyes never left Suliang, but her hands were very clear, skillfully placing them on the strings and plucking the strings. At this moment, the music that had been stuck for several years now flowed like clouds and flowing water. Clear, natural, profound meaning and long aftertaste. Regardless of his image, Suliang sat on the ground beside the piano table, supporting the piano table with his arms, enjoying the music leisurely, closing his eyes and humming, and tapping his legs intentionally or unintentionally with his palms to beat the beat. At this moment, the reality and the scenes of the simulated life overlapped, and the two of them seemed to be back in that huge palace again, one playing the piano, the other enjoying it, occasionally looking at each other and smiling knowingly. For a while, the atmosphere is somewhat warm and quiet. The other side. Seeing Suliang being taken away by the Queen Mother, Qin Benjiao found her cousin. When Ying Kaoj learned that Suliang was taken away by others, he couldn't help but remind him, "Benjiao, don't blame your sister for not reminding you, men will be taken away." However, Ying Kaoj did not expect that. Qin Benjiao was very calm when faced with his reminder and waved her hand, "It's okay, Sister Ying, don't worry, your husband loves me very much." However, in Ying Kaoj's eyes, her attitude is undoubtedly the most confident. He does love you now, but, can you guarantee that he will love you forever? If it is not managed well, love will deteriorate. Perhaps there is indeed love in this world for generations to come, but Ying Kaoj's character determines that she never has any expectations for people's hearts. Living in the deep palace, Ying Kaoj has seen too many betrayals and intrigues. If she still expected it, she might not be able to live well until now. He frowned slightly and thought for a moment before Ying Kaoj said, "Forget it, I will teach you a few tricks so that you can tie Suliang tightly." Ying Kaoj, who has never had any love experience, actually wants to teach his cousin to protect her boyfriend. As for Qin Benjiao, she realized this and asked decisively, "Sister Ying wants to teach me? But has Sister Ying ever been in love?" With this sentence, Qin Benjiao simply dealt a fatal blow, leaving Ying Kaoj speechless for a moment. "I haven't talked about it, is that okay? I haven't talked about it before, so why can't I teach you?" Shaking his head, Ying Kaoj gritted his teeth and said, "That's not the point. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 216. Just follow my sister's example and learn from you. His. After returning home, Suliang gasped as soon as he walked into the room. Leng Ao Fairy.jpg. He saw his girlfriend looking cold and arrogant, with her head held high and a cold face, sitting on a chair, as if waiting for her. And because of Qin Benjiao's cold arrogance, the atmosphere in the whole room seemed a little solemn. "That's not good. Did you get caught eating it?" Unable to help but swallow, Suliang felt a little worried and asked tremblingly, "Benjiao, what happened? Why do you look like this?" Unexpectedly, Qin Binjao's eyes widened and she said with a cute look on her face, "Don't worry, Sulang, I just learned from Sister Ying." Sister Ying said it's a contrast to cuteness. Is that so? Then what was he worried about just now? Volume 1 Hashtag Chapter 201 Tan Kinja is proud of the spring breeze, the fairy enjoys time. And, do you even have to tell me this kind of thing? The cold and arrogant feeling you made just now was all destroyed by your cuteness. If you insist a little longer, maybe I will confess everything? Suliang blinked and looked at his girlfriend, feeling very helpless. My silly fairy girlfriend is too cute, right? Love it, love it. After thinking about it, Suliang took the initiative to confess, ahem, just after the celebration, the Queen Mother came to invite me to go on a trip. I couldn't shirk it, so I had to agree. On the way out, the Queen Mother was very proactive and always wanted to take advantage of me, but Binjao, don't worry, I will never let her succeed. We just visited the piano shop, played the piano, and then came back. At this point, Suliang frowned slightly. I suspect that the Queen Mother may have some other purpose for acting like this. Otherwise, as the Queen Mother, how could she do this to me? However, Suliang did not expect that after hearing his confession, Qin Binjao said directly, "That's it, Suliang, it doesn't matter. Since she came to the door, if not, you can capture her." Hey, what a bold proposal this is. Is there anyone like you who always lets his own man attack others? I didn't expect you to be such a fairy. But, give up on this, I won't make a mistake. Suliang looked upright and solemn. He didn't say a word, but it was worth 1,000 words. His attitude represented everything. In his opinion, this is a test that his girlfriend has put to him. How could he fail? However, little did he know that what Qin Binjao said was serious. Qin Binjao didn't know when she started to realize that as long as she saw her husband interacting closely with her master, or even other women besides herself, she would feel particularly stimulated. The kind of feeling where you know you are very uncomfortable, but you just find it exciting, you just want to see it, you just can't stop, and you have to find a way to see it even if you can't see it. Isn't it too exciting? Perhaps Qin Binjao herself hasn't realized what bad habits she has awakened. Just when Suliang and Qin Binjao were happily in Shengjing, on the other side, Tan Kinja, who finally found her aunt's weakness, really realized how to become the master and do all kinds of things to her aunt. "Auntie, oh, the beast in front is so fierce. My niece is so scared. Should Auntie protect her niece?" Tan Kinja pointed at the ferocious beast in front of her that was not yet in the realm of immortality, blinked her eyes, and said with a narrow smile, "Auntie, if my niece is seriously injured by the ferocious beast, I'm afraid she won't be able to remember many things about a Liang." Threat, this is clearly a threat. That is just a ferocious beast in the dragon transformation realm. How can you, who is considered invincible in the immortality realm, not be your opponent? Don't you want to call me over? Wan Qing glanced sideways at her niece, but she had no choice but to say, "Just wait, I'll come as soon as I can." After that, he stepped forward and smashed the so-called ferocious beast that even the immortal realm was afraid of with one slap. Hee, my aunt is still awesome. Tan Kinja stood aside and watched the scene with her hands on her hips. She was extremely proud. She finally had the opportunity to command her aunt, so why not use her strength like this? Seeing her niece's triumphant expression, Wan Qing almost clenched her fists, but in the end, she took a deep breath and endured it. Hold it back, everything is for the sake of master." After walking along the way again, the sky soon became dark, and the two of them successfully found an inn to complain. In the evening, take a bath in the bathtub. Tan Kinja was lying on the edge of the bathtub, her soft and delicate body was soaked by the water, and her hair was filled with water. She looked lazy and dangling her small feet. "Oh, I'm so tired. I want someone to rub my back and massage it, otherwise, a person who is too tired will not be able to remember his man, let alone share it with others. Hee hee, I'm not Lily, but I just want my aunt to wait on me, alas, just to play." Looking at her niece's lazy look, Wan Qing walked over with her eyes dripping with water, and put her slender hands on her body. "Auntie, come here." Hearing this, Tan Kinja turned her head to look at her aunt, blinked her beautiful eyes, "Say goodbye, won't it embarrass my aunt too much?" "Don't be embarrassed, don't be embarrassed." Wan Qing shook her head. "That's good, come on." Tan Kinja nodded happily, and then felt extremely comfortable feeling her aunt's back rub and massage. "Haha, finally one day, I, Tan Kinja, can turn over and be the master, letting my aunt serve me. How can this feeling be described by a happy spring breeze?" On the other side, Wan Qing, who was caring for her niece, kept suppressing the anger in her heart. "Wanking, calm down, calm down. I bear the humiliation and bear the burden just to understand my current master, and I cannot let a momentary impulse cause all the things I have done before to fall short. As for this idiot niece who dares to call her aunt, soon, I want her to look good." After several days of trekking, Tan Kinja and Wan Qing soon arrived at the place where the vision was born. Looking at the content written on the somewhat blurry stone tablet here, Wan Qing raised her eyebrows slightly with a look of understanding on her face. "It turns out, it's her." Tan Kinja was a little confused and asked, "Auntie, what's wrong?" Wan Qing didn't pay attention to the fact that her idiot niece was ordering her around a few days ago. While looking at the stone tablet, she explained, "In the past, there was a woman who was the headmaster of the concubine Shui Pavilion. This woman had amazing talent and entered Taoism through dancing. The dancing posture is as graceful as a startling dragon, and he actually found a new way, understood the avenue of charm, and created a 1 in a 10,000 kind of charming dance. The Tao is there, but there is only one person in the billions who can understand it and create a new Tao in the world. It is extremely rare. This woman's innate understanding is extremely terrifying. And according to the records on this stone tablet, this is where the woman's inheritance lies." His. Hearing this, Tan Kinja took a deep breath subconsciously. It was difficult for her to even develop her charm body. Before meeting Sul Yang, she had been tortured by her charm body for several years. It was not until she met Sul Yang that she made some achievements. And these women can actually understand the avenue of charm and create a unique charm dance. Is this innate understanding too terrifying? We came just in time. Let's go and have a look. After Wan Qing felt it for a moment, she opened her eyes and said to Tan Kinja. Tan Kinja nodded, and the two of them walked towards the entrance of the secret realm of inheritance. However, as soon as I reached the entrance of the secret realm, I saw fairies and witches from all forces gathering here. These fairies and witches are beautiful in appearance, full of charm when looking at them, but they all lack a sense of naturalness and smoothness. This kind of charm is only on the surface and does not go deep. At this moment, these fairies and witches were all looking at each other warily. Although they did not communicate much with each other, they could still feel the hostility between them. There is only one inheritance, and there are so many people present, so naturally, there must be a winner. In other words, everyone present is an enemy. Seeing the arrival of Tan Kinja and Wan Qing, although these fairies and witches did not take action, they were still wary of them. "See this?" Wan Qing said calmly to Tan Kinja, "In order to prevent others from wasting their time, I will drive them away first." Hearing this, Tan Kinja was completely stunned. Although my aunt behaves weirdly on weekdays, she is actually a very proud person at heart. Why did she start talking dirty? In order not to let them waste time, I drove them all away. This logic is correct, but it still feels weird. Before Tan Kinja could react, Wan Qing took a step forward and came to the front of a group of fairies and witches. She was extremely domineering and had a powerful aura far beyond the realm of immortality. In an instant, everyone present felt this amazing feeling. The pressure of fear. With her hands behind her back, Wan Qing said calmly, "I've taken over this place, who has any objections? Who has an opinion? Who dares to have an opinion?" Wan Qing's mere reveal of her aura suppressed all of them until they could no longer stand firm, and even their breathing was a little unsmooth, as if they could faint at any time from the pressure. With this hand alone, there is no doubt that Wan Qing's strength far exceeds that of others. Have a problem with her? That's courting death. Then, listening to Wan Qing's words, even though everyone was unwilling, they still kept retreating with fear on their faces, not daring to say even one more word. At this moment, Wan Qing was truly dominating the entire audience by herself, and no one dared to disapprove. And just then, boom! After a burst of noise, the secret realm of inheritance opened. Wan Qing looked at Tan Qinja and said, "Go in." "Good." Tan Qinja nodded. There were so many fairies and witches in the audience, but she was the only one who entered alone. "Gee, it feels like a thigh, but it's different." Shengjing. After the celebration, the day's bustle is over, and now comes the highlight of the day, ancestor worship. Because it is the ancestor worship that took place 300 years after the founding of the country, the process this time will be more complicated and vast. Ying Kaoch sat in front of Suliang and Qin Benjao and explained the process of ancestor worship this time in a serious manner. This time the ancestor worship is going to the true dragon tomb. After that. But once the words were said, Ying Kaoch couldn't help but frown, looking at his cousin with a helpless expression. Why doesn't Sister Ying say anything? Qin Benjao blinked, then suddenly realized something, and said obediently, "Listen, Sister Ying, please continue." However, my villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Wo Meng. Chapter 217. This time, Ying Kaoch couldn't bear it anymore and said with a dark face, "Can you sit up and talk again? With you like this, it's hard for me to believe your sincerity. What time is it now? It's time for me to explain to you the process of ancestor worship. But what about you, at such an important time, not only do you not listen well, but you also act like this. I think this is good, right?" Qin Benjao said nonchalantly, showing no intention of sitting up. "I saw." At this moment, Qin Benjao was lying on her boyfriend's lap, with her hands around her boyfriend's waist, like a hamster, rubbing against her boyfriend's body, her pretty face turned red. "This look. It looks cute, but is it too casual? My cousin is talking about important things, can you be more serious?" Suliang felt helpless as he reached out to hug his girlfriend. "My girlfriend is good at everything, super talented, graceful, gentle, considerate, kind, simple and cute, but she just doesn't know how to look at the situation. If you behave like this when it's just the two of us, there's no problem. Even if you do it in front of your cousin when nothing happens, it doesn't matter. But now we are really talking about business. Benjao, it is indeed a bit inappropriate for you to do this. To put it mildly, my girlfriend is innocent and cute, but to put it harshly, forget it, how can I say such unpleasant things to my girlfriend? I can't even think of it." And this time, Qin Benjao didn't seem to feel anything was wrong at all. Instead, she stretched out her little feet wrapped in white silk like ice cream, put them on her sister's body and rubbed them back and forth. "Ah!" Qin Benjao sighed comfortably, resting her head on her boyfriend's leg, and her feet on her sister's leg, hugging her left and right, having both top and bottom. How could she be so happy? In this comfortable life, there is no guilt at all. I just want to continue like this. With her hands spread out, Qin Binjao had a comfortable smile on her face, almost falling asleep. But at this point, Yang Kaoj finally couldn't stand it anymore. How did my pure, holy, cold, arrogant, and lovely sister become like this? I'm talking about very serious things now. Can you please stop making trouble? To be honest, even if Qin Binjao didn't know how to look at the situation in the past, she always kept aloof after all. She would never do something like this when others were busy doing her business. Then, unable to bear it any longer, Yang Kaoj immediately shook off his sister's white stocking feet, and then stretched out his black stocking feet to step on his sister's white ice cream. Ah! Qin Binjao screamed and fought back decisively. She pulled her foot back as if it was twitching, bent her knees, and kicked her sister's black stocking feet one after another. Yang Kaoj was also not to be outdone, and like Qin Binjao, he bent his knees and kept kicking. For a while, the two women were fighting, with their black and white silk stockings clashing. The speed was so fast that they couldn't see clearly. All they could see was the black and white after images emerging, shaking back and forth, but gradually blending together. It looked extremely interesting. Seeing this scene, Suliang couldn't help laughing, and almost wanted to laugh out loud. If it were my previous girlfriend. She has always maintained the appearance of a cold fairy. Who knew that she still had such a side? My current girlfriend is the most authentic and happiest person. And this time, seemingly seeing Suliang's suppressed smile, Yang Kaoj immediately woke up. What are you doing? Unexpectedly, he and Binjao were quarreling to this point, and Suliang was watching from the side. This was too inappropriate. Then, ahem. Yang Kaoj immediately put his feet back and returned to his reserved look. Okay, Binjao, stop making trouble, let's continue talking about ancestor worship. Oh. Qin Binjao nodded and put her feet away obediently, but still lying in her boyfriend's arms. As for this scene, Suliang was used to it and didn't react much at all. Do you think this is the first time they have done this? No, 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 I've seen it many times. Time passed, and soon it was time to worship ancestors. In the true dragon tomb, the royal family gathered together, and the ceremonial guards were packed. It looked very lively. And Suliang and Qin Binjao were among the first to arrive following Yang Kaoj. I've met Mr. Su. When the second prince arrived and saw Suliang, there was a look of reverence in his eyes, and he hurried forward to pay his respects. Immediately afterwards, not only the second prince, but other members of the royal family arrived. The moment they saw Suliang, they also respected him extremely. Before Suliang could make any move, they all came to pay their respects. After all, Suliang was a major contributor to the celebration. No matter what they have in mind, the 9 ringings of the Suliang bell signify the peace of the country and the people, and a sign of great prosperity. This is good for the entire Daxia dynasty, and even each of them. After greeting each other, Yang Kaoj walked up to the crowd and said loudly, "The time has come, ancestor worship begins. Please sacrifice the ancestral artifact and awaken the ancestral dragon." As the voice of Yang Kaoj fell, a large number of people around them held various ancestral sacrificial vessels and placed them on the stage in front of everyone. Immediately afterwards, all members of the royal family took action to inject breath into the ancestral sacrificial vessel, hoping to awaken the ancestral dragon. However, after the breath is injected, he will be awakened instantly in the past, and the ancestral dragon that appears, this time, has not appeared for a long time. How is this going? Why is there no movement from the ancestral dragon? Could it be that the ancestral sacrificial weapon is useless? Everyone panicked. Awakening the ancestral dragon is the first step in worshipping the ancestors. If the ancestral dragon cannot be awakened, then the ancestor worship cannot proceed at all. Even the ancestral dragon of Daxia cannot be awakened, which means that the ancestral dragon does not recognize it. All members of the royal family present may be criticized. And just then, Qin Benjao came out and said, "How about I give it a try?" When the royal family members injected their aura, Qin Benjao did not take action. Turning to look at Qin Benjao, Yang Kaoj nodded, "Okay, let Benjao try." After hearing this, everyone looked at Qin Benjao, and no one had much expectations. Even the princes and daughters like them failed. How could Qin Benjao, a princess, be able to do it? How can it be? Under the gaze of everyone, Qin Benjao walked up to the ancestral sacrificial vessel, looked at it for a moment, then clapped her jade hand, and breathed into it. Moment. Buzz. The ancestral sacrificial vessel buzzed and trembled, seeming to resonate with Qin Benjao. Immediately afterwards, boom! A powerful aura emerged, and a true dragon figure loomed. At this moment, everyone still didn't know what was going on. Qin Benjao actually awakens along. Just as everyone in the royal family looked at Qin Benjao with different eyes, Yang Kaoj said loudly, "The ancestor dragon wakes up, the ancestor worship begins." As the sound of Ying Chao Ji fell, all the members of the royal family hurriedly came to their senses, lit incense, read blessings, presented tributes, and a series of tedious procedures. After a series of tedious procedures, this ancestor worship was finally a success. "The ancestor worship is completed, and I send you the ancestral dragon." Yang Kaoj said loudly again, if the ancestor worship was successful, he would naturally send the awakens along Gong back. However, Volume 1 Chapter 202 I am just here to repay my kindness. At this moment, a sudden change occurred. Hold head high. An exciting dragon roar suddenly sounded. Under the surprised gaze of everyone, a pure aura suddenly emitted from Zalong's huge body and floated straight towards Qin Benjao, who was standing in the crowd. Immediately afterwards, this pure dragon energy entered Qin Benjao's body, and Qin Benjao's whole body exuded a very mysterious aura. See this. Countless members of the royal family were all red-eyed. And Yang Kaoj blurted out, "Benjao is actually recognized by Zalong. Zalong approves." Suliang looked at Yang Kaoj with some confusion, not understanding the connection. Yang Kaoj stabilized his mind and then said, "Any outstanding person in our Daxia royal family may be recognized by Zalong, and as long as they are recognized by Zalong, they can go deep into the true dragon mausoleum and accept Zalong of baptism. For us and other members of the royal family, this is not only an honor, but also a great opportunity. Be baptized by the ancestral dragon." Suliang thought about the meaning of this sentence, turned to look at the huge, high-spirited real dragon, and then looked at his girlfriend. He couldn't help but feel more worried. This ancestral dragon baptism, won't there be any danger? After hearing this, Yang Kaoj shook his head and explained, "Don't worry, Benjao will never be in danger. Actually, the ancestral dragon is not a living thing, but an aggregation of the dragon veins of our great Xia national fortune. It is a great opportunity to be recognized by it. Benjao will only gain great benefits if he enters it." "I see." Suliang nodded in understanding. No wonder, he felt that the aura of the real dragon was a little strange. It turned out that it was just the aggregation of the dragon veins of national fortune. In this way, his girlfriend was recognized by him, and there seemed to be no danger. But Suliang soon realized another thing. He looked at Yang Kaoj and asked doubtfully, "But why do you know so clearly?" Before Yang Kaoj could speak, Qin Benjao raised her little hands like a good baby and replied, I know, Sister Ying was recognized 10 years ago." "Recognized 10 years ago? 10 years ago, how young was Yang Kaoj?" "He was recognized by Zalong at such a young age. This was even worse than his own girlfriend. I am just lucky. This matter is really not worth mentioning." Yang Kaoj shook his head and said rather modestly, However, Suliang didn't think so. Although he didn't know the conditions for Zalong's approval, he could guess some by comparing it to his girlfriend. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 218. And since Yang Kaoj was recognized 10 years earlier than his girlfriend. For a moment, Suliang looked at Yang Kaoj with solemn eyes. This great princess of Daxia seems to be unfathomable. After chatting for a while, Yang Kaoj touched Qin Benjao's head and said, "Okay, Zalong is still waiting. Benjao, please go quickly." Oh. Qin Benjao nodded, held her sister's hand, and begged, "Sister Ying, you must take good care of Sulang while I'm away. Don't let Sulang be bullied or wronged." "Don't worry." Yang Kaoj nodded, "Don't you still believe in me and Suliang? Let alone me taking care of you, Suliang himself is determined not to suffer." "All right." Qin Benjao nodded, let go of Yang Kaoj's hand, then turned around, hugged Suliang, and buried her little face in Suliang's arms, looking reluctant to leave. She was so cute and adorable that she just wanted to let him go. "Take a bite." "Sulang, you must wait for me to come out." Qin Benjao said dully, her voice soft and sweet, with a deep sense of reluctance. "You are my wife, how can I wait for you?" With a gentle smile on his face, Suliang patted his girlfriend on the back and comforted her softly, "Okay, you'll be out soon anyway. I'll be here every day, waiting for you to come out and take you back." "Good." Qin Benjao nodded vigorously, then let go of her boyfriend, then decisively turned around and entered. Striding into the darkness, Qin Benjao looked determined. She wanted to open up her own opportunity and see the full picture of Zalong. Then, "Come out and post some stickers with your boyfriend, he." After several days, the Taoist disciple of Fukang Taoist sect finally came out of seclusion. Sitting in his room, feeling his current state, there was still a shadow in Mo Biangxian's eyes. Although he had been in seclusion for such a long time, he even went to a dangerous secret place in order to repair his Taoist heart, but Mo Biangxian found that there was still a crack in his Taoist heart that could not be healed. "Suliang, Suliang, why is it still Suliang? If it weren't for him, how could I have my heart broken? If it weren't for him, how could I, a dignified disciple, endure such pain? Master is mine and can only be mine. Master's disciple can only be mine." Clenching his fists tightly, at this moment, Suliang has become Mo Biangxian's inner demon, like a sharp blade inserted into Mo Biangxian's heart, which cannot be removed or repaired. Mo Dongxian knew very well that as long as he didn't deal with Suliang, his cultivation would never improve even half a step. "So, we can't wait another year." Mo Dongxian murmured to himself, then stood up and came to the table to check the many messages on it. Before he went into seclusion, he had already sent people to find out about Suliang. Even after he went into seclusion, the people he sent still did not stop. Even though they could not get close to Suliang, they were still aware of Suliang's location and movements. "Come here." When Mo Biangxian saw the latest information, he raised his eyebrows and said, "Suliang, he went to Daxia and is now in Shengjing." While murmuring about Shengjing, Mo Biangxian suddenly thought of something. "It seems that I have a fiancée who has been settled since childhood, and she is in Shengjing." Haha, this was achieved without any effort. "Suliang, you will die this time." After tearing up the note containing the information, Mo Yuran quickly made a decision. Another incarnation of him lurking in Shengjing has been hidden in the dark, but now, it is time to use it. Now, it's time for him to reap the fruits. When he came to the window and looked at the sky in the distance, Mo Tianxian showed a smile on his lips. This time, he planned to kill two birds with one stone. With his own strength and style, he can pick up girls, tease his fiancée, and then set up a frame-up to kill Suliang. Isn't it a simple and easy thing to do? Great things are done. After the ancestor worship is over, Suliang returned to the mansion where he lived with Qin Binjao. While waiting for his girlfriend to come out of confinement, he sorted out everything he still didn't understand. And on this day, Suliang was lying on the deck chair in the yard, basking in the sun, holding a random book in his hand, reading happily, but at this moment, a luxurious figure walked in. Sensing the presence of this beautiful figure, Suliang put down his book, raised his head, and then raised his eyebrows. Queen Mother. Why did she come to my place? I saw. Queen Mother Qin Wanyu is still wearing a purple dress, but compared with the ones she has seen before, this one is more casual, less graceful and luxurious, and more charming and leisurely. But even so, the tube-top skirt that tightly squeezes a pair of proud peaks, tightly hugs the back and highlights the plump and round silhouette, still makes her look charming and charming. I couldn't help but feel excited. I learned that Binjao has followed Zalong for baptism. I was afraid that you might not be used to living alone, so I wanted to come and visit you. With a soft smile on her face, Qin Wanyu approached Suliang step by step with elegant steps. But right now, bass. The sound of a sharp blade being unsheathed suddenly appeared. Although the sound was small, it was extremely clear to the ears of Suliang, a cultivator in the dragon transformation realm. At this moment, a bad premonition arose in Suliang's heart. Subconsciously, before any thoughts came to his mind, his body started to move. He stood up suddenly and rushed towards Qin Wanyu. Immediately afterwards, a black figure jumped down from the roof, holding a short blade in his hand, exuding a cold murderous intent that reached the sky, and stabbed Qin Wanyu in the back of the heart without mercy. This sword was full of momentum, and the murderous intention contained in it made even Suliang feel frightened. It was obvious that he wanted to kill Qin Wanyu. But before the assassin could approach Qin Wanyu, Suliang had already arrived in front of Qin Wanyu. With a frighteningly calm face, Suliang stretched out his hand and pulled Qin Wanyu behind him to protect him. Then, he stood up to protect him. He didn't even have time to pull out his sword. He just stretched out his hand like a sword finger. Suddenly, countless sword energy spread across the air. Slash towards the assassin. Dang dang. The assassin took action and fired several sword attacks one after another. He seemed to know that with Suliang's presence, he would definitely not be able to kill Qin Wanyu today, so he used the power of the last sword energy to move with the wind like a fallen leaf, and he was far away in an instant. Go, no trace found. See this. Suliang breathed a sigh of relief and turned to look at Qin Wanyu. Are you okay? This moment, the domineering figure guarding him in the dream gradually overlapped with the young man in front of him, and Qin Wanyu's originally frightened face became softer. With bright eyes and buzzing lips, Qin Wanyu was so moved that she was speechless for a moment. Then, Qin Wanyu threw herself into the arms of the young man in front of her. Her eyes were red and her body was trembling slightly. She looked pitiful and seemed to be crying, I am a weak woman. It is not safe to go out. I must be jealous. Don't worry, the assassin has been repelled by me, and he probably won't come again. Suliang didn't put down his hand, he just comforted Qin Wanyu softly, but he couldn't help but feel a little suspicious in his heart. This attack was really a coincidence. On the way Qin Wanyu came here, there were so many places where he could be assassinated, so why did he come here to do it? It was as if he was deliberately trying to attract his attention and ask him to take action. It made people feel that the assassin didn't want to succeed at all. Suliang was not arrogant, but he also knew that since he came to Shengjing, whether it was because of Qin Binjao's status as a man or because of ringing the bell at the celebration, his reputation had increased a lot. As a proud member of the immortal sect, no one should doubt his strength. Therefore, in Suliang's view, there were too many doubts about this whole thing, as if someone had deliberately arranged it. Thinking in his mind, Suliang's eyes flashed and he looked at Qin Wanyu. Despite the memory of the Sims, Suliang actually still doesn't trust the Queen Mother. After helping the Queen Mother into the house and taking a short rest, Qin Wanyu's condition improved a lot. However, just when Suliang thought that Qin Wanyu just said a few words and would leave soon, Qin Wanyu had no intention of leaving at all and stayed until the evening. And this time, Qin Wanyu seemed to be particularly proactive. When Suliang didn't expect it, she started a bold attack. Night. After arranging a room for Qin Wanyu, Suliang took off his clothes and walked into the bathtub to take a bath. Feeling the warm water washing over his body, Suliang sighed comfortably. But right now? Wow! The water in the pool suddenly stirred. Suliang was startled and quickly turned his head, only to see Qin Wanyu walking in without knowing when and standing next to Suliang. I saw. Qin Wanyu only wore a thin yukata, and half of her body was immersed in the water at the moment. The skirt of her clothes was wet and clinging tightly to her body, which further highlighted the impressive height of her body. Looking across the water, the tight-fitting clothes vividly show off the straight and round silhouette behind her. A pair of slender and plump legs are rippling in the water waves, and they are so beautiful. Looking up, Qin Wanyu still had that soft smile on her face, maybe it was contaminated by the warm pool water. There were 2 spots of blush on her cheeks, which looked rosy and as bright as jade. With her messy and wet hair clinging to her cheeks, Qin Wanyu stared at Suliang with eyes that seemed to be able to speak. It was difficult to express her emotions in words. All in all, Qin Wanyu at this moment has a feminine look and looks very plump. "Let me wipe your back," Qin Wanyu said softly and moved softly. Suliang refused. "I think it's better not to use it." However, faced with Suliang's rejection, Qin Wanyu shook her head and said, "You saved my life during the day. This is just a token of gratitude." Suliang frowned slightly, but soon let go. Perhaps influenced by the character of the Overlord in The Sims, Suliang straightened his back subconsciously at this moment, and his movements were casual and natural, without any scruples. "Yes, how can you refuse when you are so beautiful? Since you brought it to your doorstep, of course I will accept it." The tyrant is not afraid of any conspiracy. Then Suliang nodded casually and naturally, "Okay." Immediately, he turned around and fearlessly faced Qin Wanyu with his back. In an instant, a scornful and arrogant aura emerged. "Since you insist on doing this, then come on." After a simple back rub, Suliang lay on the edge of the bathtub. Qin Wanyu's soft jade hands gently squeezed Suliang's body and massaged Suliang. Volume 1 Chapter 203 Suliang, do you want a wife or not? You can still be stronger. Suddenly, Suliang said. As Suliang's voice sounded, the scornful, arrogant, and undeniable domineering attitude that escaped unconsciously instantly made the atmosphere in the entire bath become solemn. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 219. Even Qin Wanyu, the Empress Dowager who was the mother of the world and now stood at the top of the Great Xia, couldn't help but tremble. The scenes in the dream appeared before her eyes one after another. This familiar feeling seemed to turn on the switch of her memory, allowing Qin Wanyu to recall everything she had ever experienced. Yes, once upon a time, she served the domineering king like this. Every word and every action of that king carried an absolutely powerful aura that no one could refuse and look down upon the world. But at that time, she was very happy with it. Not only did she not feel any fear or worry, but she was intoxicated by it. But now, this was just a tiny amount of momentum that escaped, making her body tremble. Just because, At that time, she only had him in her heart, but now. For a moment, all Qin Huanyu's original temptations disappeared without a trace, and all that was left was to serve obediently and unconsciously follow Suliang's instructions, not daring to disobey him in the slightest. After bathing. In the middle of the night, Suliang was lying on the bed, staring at the wall on one side with his eyes open. He couldn't sleep, and his mind was filled with this strange situation. Suliang had nothing to worry about. Any evil tricks could be broken with the strongest force, but this feeling of being confused and ignorant was really uncomfortable. And just then, Suliang suddenly felt that the quilt behind him was suddenly lifted, and then, a soft and delicate body with a hot temperature came in, leaning against him tightly. "What's coming in?" Suliang was startled and turned around hastily. At a glance, he saw Qin Huanyu getting into her bed wearing only a tulle. "What are you?" Suliang was a little confused and couldn't understand Qin Huanyu's thoughts at all. "I couldn't sleep in the middle of the night. I thought of you being alone and lonely, so I wanted to come and warm your bed." Qin Huanyu blinked her big beautiful eyes. "What, aren't you welcome?" "Of course not welcome. I have more than one girlfriend. My girlfriend and sister are enough for me. How could I let you do this?" Subconsciously, Suliang wanted to refuse. But before he could say anything, Qin Huanyu pressed directly against Suliang without any reservation. Moment. Suliang felt that the undeniable warmth and smooth comfort were like holding a piece of warm and fragrant jade, which made people reluctant to let go. Not only that. Under Qin Huanyu's gauze, a pair of proud peaks clung to Suliang's body, squeezing tightly. Due to their extraordinary elasticity and softness, they had already undergone some deformation. On the legs are those plump and slender legs, which are both elastic and soft. There is an indescribable beauty in this feeling, which makes people just want to get closer. If this person were not Suliang, he would have been unable to bear such stimulation. But after all, Suliang had mastered the Bodhi state of mind. At this moment, the Bodhi tree emitted bright light, washing Suliang's Taoist heart, making it ethereal and transparent. He immediately recovered from this stimulation and wanted to break away from Qin Huanyu. But before Suliang could take action, he heard Qin Huanyu say, "Why did you save me during the day? You obviously have been Jao, how can it be worth taking the risk for me?" Hearing this, Suliang blinked and said, "It's just a subconscious action, it's nothing. I know that the power of that man's sword is not as strong as mine, so I feel somewhat confident." However, Qin Huanyu was a little dissatisfied and asked, "Is that all?" Suliang nodded and said nothing, but he already acquiesced. After a moment of silence, Qin Huanyu spoke again, with a hint of sadness in her charming and hoarse voice. "I still remember, I don't know how many years ago, there was an overlord who, for the sake of his beloved, willing to go against destiny, go against heaven, block the lover behind him, and resist all dangers. No one knows who the beloved is, but the overlord looks a bit like you. Do you know him?" Hearing this, Suliang frowned slightly, but returned to normal in the blink of an eye. He shook his head and said, "I don't know him, but speaking of it, if a person is willing to do this for another person, think about it, that person you must love her very much, right?" Of course Suliang knew who Qin Huanyu was talking about, but he swore that his words were just out of emotion and were not meant to be teasing at all. However, when Qin Huanyu heard these words, her taste changed a bit. Yes, the overlord loves that peerless woman so much that he is willing to do this for her. What about you? Is this why you desperately saved me? At this moment, Qin Huanyu and Suliang looked at each other. Vaguely, she felt that the fiery feelings buried in her heart were rising, and she could no longer suppress them. But in fact, Qin Huanyu came to Suliang just to test out the relationship between Suliang and the man in her dream, and then she could charm and control Suliang. But she never expected that she would be the first to forget her purpose, and instead be tempted by Suliang's words. And this time, looking at Qin Wanyu, who was in a daze, Suliang shook his head, stretched out his arms, held Qin Wanyu in his arms, rubbed her, and said, "Okay, it's very late, it's time to go to bed. Since you are here to warm the bed, then just sleep. Don't worry, I don't mind it." Listening to Suliang's words and feeling the hot but reassuring feeling in Suliang's arms, Qin Wanyu's face turned red and she felt extremely embarrassed. Obviously I am the older one, why should I listen to you? No, no. Then Qin Wanyu immediately turned over, pressed on Suliang, and got into Suliang's arms. She rubbed her little head here and there. After finding the most suitable and comfortable position for her, she closed her eyes and enjoyed the long-lost caring and comfort. The next morning, Suliang opened his eyes and subconsciously reached out to hug him. However, the hug was empty. Huh? Where are the people? Suliang blinked and touched the still warm quilt. Thinking about everything last night, he decisively got up and walked out of the room. However, he saw at a glance that in the kitchen, Qin Wanyu only wore a purple tube-top dress, but outside, she was wearing a silk apron and was busy cooking for Suliang. Qin Wanyu's movements were very skillful and natural. It felt like preparing breakfast for her own man. Looking at Qin Wanyu's appearance at this moment, the tube-top skirt squeezes the proud peak, revealing the towering curvature. The skirt reaches all the way to the ankles, and the round outline is perfectly revealed in the sharp part behind her, plus the plump and slender figure. Beautiful legs. And the most finishing touch is the silk apron, which envelopes everything and adds a bit of hazy beauty. Hiss. The Queen Mother's plump figure is really too exciting. As if sensing Suliang, Qin Wanyu turned to look at him and smiled softly, "Wait a moment, breakfast will be ready soon." At the dinner table, Suliang looked at the table full of ridiculously sumptuous breakfast. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. Others may not believe it, but the Queen Mother not only rubbed her back last night and slept in her arms all night, but this morning she also made herself a sumptuous breakfast like a little wife. I always feel like something is wrong. At this time, Qin Wanyu glanced at Suliang, who was still looking at the breakfast in a daze, and asked doubtfully, "Why don't you eat? Could it be that the food I cooked is not to your liking?" "No, no." Suliang shook his head, picked up the chopsticks, picked up the food, and put it into his mouth. And this time, Qin Wanyu stretched out her hand and took the chopsticks directly from Suliang's hand. Immediately, under Suliang's puzzled gaze, Qin Wanyu came to Suliang's side, hugged Suliang's arm, put her little head in front of Suliang, looked affectionate, and opened her mouth. "Ah, open your mouth, it's time to eat." Suliang felt a headache when he saw the dignified Queen Mother looking like this. He subconsciously stepped back a little, put a little distance away from Qin Wanyu, and said righteously, "Queen Mother, please respect yourself." "But I didn't expect it." Faced with Suliang's warning, Qin Wanyu didn't care at all. Instead, she came forward, hugged Suliang's arm, put it between the proud peaks and tied it tightly, pouting. Looking unhappy, "I told you that you want to call me Aunt Qin. It's not like you haven't called her before, why don't you call me now? Isn't this appropriate?" Suliang subconsciously twitched his arm, but when he saw that he couldn't pull it out at all, a trace of mist rose in Qin Wanyu's eyes, so he had no choice but to give up, and then said helplessly, "What's inappropriate about this?" Qin Wanyu shook her head and opened her mouth again. "Ah, hurry up and let Aunt Qin feed you." "Okay, okay." Suliang couldn't bear the disturbance, so he had no choice but to agree. He had a hunch that if he didn't agree, Qin Wan would keep pestering him on the date and would either feed him again or ask him to call himself Aunt Qin. Who can withstand this? And just then, Yang Kaoj happened to walk in and saw such a harmonious scene between Suliang and Qin Wanyu. For a moment, Kao felt a little confused. To be fair, it was still breakfast time and it was very early, but Qin Wanyu, the queen mother of a country, appeared at Suliang's place and served Suliang to eat with a charming look. This is wrong no matter how you think about it. Qin Benjao followed Zi along to be baptized. Is this matter known to everyone in the royal family? Qin Wanyu, the queen mother, is no exception. But even so, she still appears here, and her target is obviously Suliang. Something is wrong, this is very wrong. The queen mother came to Suliang so early and looked so intimate with Suliang. She was definitely not well intentioned. Looking at this scene, Kao's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, full of suspicion. Then, before the two of them finished their breakfast, Kao quickly walked up to them, looked at Qin Wanyu condescendingly, and righteously condemned, "Mother, you are wrong to do this. No matter what your identity is, it is immoral to steal someone else's man, especially when the other person is Benjao's man and your relative. How can you bear to do it? If you do this, how can you have the face to see Benjao in the future? How can you have the face to meet people in the world?" However, facing Kao's condemnation, Qin Wanyu didn't care at all. "I have never said that I have such thoughts. Kao, are you worried too much? I'm just here to see Benjao in retreat. Suliang lives alone in this big yard, so he will inevitably feel a little lonely. That's why I came to visit." "Well, yes, that's what I think. At most, I just want to test him again. I definitely don't have any intention of stealing men." Facing this eldest princess, no matter what you think in your heart, at least you can't appear guilty on the surface. Moreover, I didn't have this intention in the first place, so why should I feel guilty? Thinking in her mind, Qin Wanyu continued to mentally build herself up, as if she really thought this way. But in Kao's eyes, everything was different. "You, the majestic queen mother, have even revealed your concubine's identity, and yet you still say you don't have any ideas. What's bothering you about people's loneliness? Do you need to take care of it?" I don't know why, but looking at this scene, Suliang always feels like a mother and daughter in a Shura field. However, before Kao could speak again, Qin Wanyu stood up with a soft smile on her face. "Suliang, I still have something to do, so I won't stay here with you. If there is any trouble, just come to the palace to find it. I am my concubine." After that, he decisively turned around and left, not giving Kao any time to speak. At this moment, Kao was completely helpless. After Qin Wanyu had completely walked away, she sat opposite Suliang and said with some dissatisfaction, "Suliang, you and the Queen Mother are too close. I have warned you a long time ago that the Queen Mother is deeply scheming and cannibalistic. She's not an easy character to deal with if she doesn't spit out bones, so you must not get too close to her. I also know that without Benjao, you are indeed a little lonely. But if you are really lonely and can't bear it anymore, I can help you find a way. Say it." Before Suliang could react, Kao pulled her out. From the empty place behind her, a female general in black stockings was pulled out. The female general in black stockings looked confused and was pushed to Suliang by Kao. In front of Liang, "Here, this is my subordinate, Yefei, what do you think?" So, unexpectedly, Yefei and Suliang met for the first time. However, my villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 220. At this moment, Yefei was extremely ashamed. Was he so caught off guard that His Highness gave it to this person? Well, although Suliang is indeed handsome, can resist the Queen Mother's tricks, and is not weak at all, it is a good choice no matter what, but is it too much to be sent out like this? Volume 1 Chapter 204, Winning Chao Ji is so touching that she does not hesitate to protect her cousin's boyfriend. "Your Highness, when you came out, you told me that you had important things to leave, but you asked me to come here to do this? Is that too much? No matter what, you have to ask for my opinion. Now that it is so shameful, what do you want others to do? Thinking in his mind, Ye Fei looked at Ying Kaoj with resentful eyes. But Ying Chao Ji pretended not to know anything about this. However, Sul Yang, who was on the side, looked at Ye Fei's outfit with admiration, and sighed, "This dress of yours is simply an epoch-making work." I saw. Ye Fei was dressed in a snow-white military uniform, which tightly bound her proud peak. She wore a short skirt on her lower body, which covered her tall and petite body. The white silk she usually wore was replaced by a pair of black silk today, wrapping her slender legs. But it is this pair of black silk stockings that forms a strong contrast with the snow-white clothes on her upper body, which is eye-catching and looks extremely moving. Coupled with the straight boots on Ye Fei's feet, they perfectly highlighted her slender and elastic legs, giving her an extraordinary beauty. In Sul Yang's eyes, this outfit is completely the cosplay costume of the new era. This is definitely an epoch-making design, isn't it? Hearing the compliment unexpectedly, Ye Fei's cheeks immediately turned red, and she didn't even care about the shame before. She lowered her head slightly, feeling a little embarrassed. But soon, Ye Fei raised his head and said excitedly, "Yeah, I think so too. Let me tell you, others say that my clothes are not good and they want to criticize me, but these clothes are obviously so good-looking and comfortable, why can't I wear them anymore?" To be honest, this was the first time someone said this, and the first time someone praised her clothes. This made Ye Fei's excitement uncontrollable, and she couldn't wait to start discussing it with Sul Yang. Sul Yang also echoed Ye Fei's topic and nodded, as if he agreed very much. "Don't pay attention to them. They are just a bunch of rotten old academics. They just don't see anything new. I think your clothes are very good looking. It suits you very well. You can feel free to wear it boldly. If anyone dares to say anything, I will go and have tea with him. However, I think your clothes might look better if you modify them like this." Following Ye Fei's words, Sul Yang kept putting forward some novel modifications according to his own ideas. Ye Fei's eyes almost shone when he heard it, and he almost wrote it down on the piece of paper. If you are not familiar with her clothes, they came from the cracks of the abyss and were comparable to Dao tools. She couldn't change them herself, so she had to go back and change them. For a while, the two of them chatted more and more enthusiastically. After talking for a long time, they still felt that they still had something to say, and they felt like they had met too late. Ying Kaoj, who came with Ye Fei, was completely ignored by the two of them. See this. Ying Kaoj felt a little anxious. Although Ye Fei is a subordinate to Ying Kaoj, she is also a best friend. What she said before was just a joke, and she didn't really want to give Ye Fei to Sul Yang. But now it seems that fear of death is really a bit like this, right? No way, I just brought my best friend to Sul Yang, and then I really hooked up with my best friend. Seeing the two chatting more and more happily, Ying Kaoj finally couldn't help it anymore, interrupted the two of them and said, okay, you two stop first." Seeing the two of them stopping their discussion and looking at themselves in confusion, Ying Kaoj bit her red lips with her teeth. After a moment, she seemed to have made up her mind, and then said, "Sul Yang, the Queen Mother comes to you so frequently, there must be something wrong with her. What is her purpose? But since you don't listen to me, I can't just see you fall into the Queen Mother's trap. So, I have decided to move in with you from today onwards, which can be regarded as supervising you. Don't refuse, this is also for Benjeo. Now that Benjeo is not here, I can't let you make a mistake. Yes, that's it, live in it by yourself, for the sake of my cousin, to prevent the house from being robbed." Otherwise, Ying Kaoj felt that Sul Yang didn't know what was going to happen with the Queen Mother these days when his cousin was away. After saying these words, Before Suliang could say anything, Yang took Yefei and returned to the palace to pack his things. So, when Suliangdu was a little confused, Yang moved in here. Living in the same hospital, it seems, is this a different kind of cohabitation? But living with the so-called alternative is far from as relaxing and peaceful as Yang imagined. Early morning. Suliang got up early. After making breakfast, he ate on his own, leaving Yang portion behind. Then he sat on a lounge chair in the yard, leisurely sipping tea and reading a book. And just then, squeak! There was a soft sound, and the door of the room not far away opened. Yang, who had just woken up and had not had time to get dressed, walked out of the room while rubbing his sleepy eyes and feeling a little confused. I saw. At this moment, Yang seemed to be in her own palace, accustomed to getting up early. At this moment, she was naked, her clothes were disheveled due to a night's sleep, exposing her white and smooth shoulders. Even the pair of proud peaks are half hidden and half visible under the scattered clothes, and the round arc can be vaguely seen. And because she was wearing a gauze nightgown that was extremely close-fitting, Yang figure at this moment, whether it was her proud peak, flat belly, slender legs, or the perky part behind her, all her outlines were visible, and the scenery was looming, giving an unobstructed view. Moment. Although Suliang had seen more than one stunning beauty, he was still stunned for a moment. But soon, Suliang turned away and coughed lightly, ahem, good morning. Remind the eldest princess that this is not the eldest princess's palace. Hearing this, Qin Binjao was stunned for a moment, as if she couldn't understand what Suliang said. But soon, she seemed to think of something, her body stiffened suddenly, and she looked down at herself. Immediately afterwards, ah! Yang screamed, turned around and ran back to the house. In the evening, after a day's work, Yang returned to Suliang and Qin Binjao's mansion, but he was in a daze, exhausted physically and mentally, and couldn't even see the road clearly. At this moment, she just wanted to lie in bed and have a good sleep. According to his own impression, Yang came to the door of the room, opened the door and walked in. Immediately, with her slender hands flying, as if she couldn't wait, Yang clothes fell to the ground one by one. In the end, only a tulle lining remained. But after all, it is a lining, which is a close-fitting object. It pursues comfort and lightness. It is naturally a tight-fitting design, and because of the tulle, the scene inside can be said to be unobstructed. And immediately after, Yang groped in the dark and slowly climbed onto the bed. The next moment, I touched something soft and warm. It felt like a person. In an instant, Yang woke up and subconsciously looked in front of him. At a glance, he saw Suliang looking at him with confused and frightened eyes. I went into the wrong house? This thought only had time to flash through his mind. The next moment, Yang burst out with a scream, jumped up in a hurry, picked up the clothes on the ground in a hurry, and ran out of Suliang's room. Just living with Suliang for a few days, Yang didn't even know what was wrong with him, but he had already had many misunderstandings with Suliang. Although the problem is indeed not big, after all, Suliang almost sees everything every time. But unfortunately, this matter is not Suliang's fault, it is Yang own problem. Then, Yang found that his situation was getting more and more embarrassing. Every time he saw Suliang, he wanted to find a crack in the ground and crawl into it, not daring to see him. Then, in the end, Yang, who had no choice but couldn't move away, had no choice but to find his best friend, Yefei. Yefei, you will live here with me. Hearing this, Yefei was a little surprised. His Highness alone can't satisfy Suliang. Can't he stop him from finding the Queen Mother? What nonsense are you talking about? Yang touched Yefei's head with a dark face. He knew that Yefei was joking, so he didn't pay much attention to it. He just said seriously, "Don't think too much, it's just to prevent me from being embarrassed." With Yefei, when Yang Kao faced Sul Yang, she was no longer so embarrassed. She could finally carry out her purpose with peace of mind. From then on, Yang Kao really began to use various methods to supervise Sul Yang almost all the time, closely monitor Sul Yang, and stop all the little moves of the Queen Mother. However, as time went by, Yang Kao's supervision gradually turned into a fight for favor. Even with Yang Kao's supervision, Qin Huanyu's offensive was too fierce. Even in front of Yang Kao, Qin Huanyu could calmly be intimate with Sul Yang in various ways, with all kinds of tenderness and vixen attributes. It's so full that it's almost unbearable. In the afternoon, after lunch, Sul Yang practiced for a while, then lay on the recliner, flipping through a book of exercises in his hand while basking in the sun leisurely. Qin Huanyu, who had been here since the morning, brought a low stool and stood very close to Sul Yang. Her cheek was pressed against Sul Yang's arm. Her hands touched Sul Yang's body from time to time without saying a word. Just looking at Sul Yang like this. After a while, Qin Huanyu picked up the grapes on the table next to her, peeled off the skin, and put it to Sul Yang's mouth. Ah! Sul Yang subconsciously opened his mouth. Ah! Immediately, Qin Huanyu stuffed grapes into Sul Yang's mouth. But that's not all. When Sul Yang subconsciously closed his mouth, Qin Huanyu didn't take out her finger yet, so Sul Yang bit her finger gently and looked over with a confused look on her face. To be fair, Qin Huanyu was too close to him and fed him not once or twice these days. Sul Yang could resist it at first, but as time went by, he got used to it, so he naturally didn't think much about it. But who would have known that the Empress Dowager Qin Huanyu did not follow martial ethics and did this? See this. Qin Huanyu chuckled lightly and tapped Sul Yang's face with her other hand. It's so cute. Cute. I'll scare you to death when I become domineering, okay? Although my overlord body is not complete, don't underestimate it. Sul Yang cursed in his heart but said nothing. Yang Kao, who was on the side, looked at this scene, his face turned dark, and he said in a deep voice, "Mother, are you done?" Qin Huanyu turned to look at Yang Kao. Why, Sul Yang is comprehending the Great Road, and someone should come to serve him, but there is not a single maid in this courtyard. It's fine if you don't arrange a maid, and you don't want to serve him either. Doesn't he allow me to do it? Who said I can't do it? As Yang Kao spoke, he came to Sul Yang in a few steps, grabbed a handful of grapes rather roughly, and handed them to Sul Yang's mouth. Come on, open your mouth and eat. Eat, eat quickly, his milk, ahem. Sul Yang looked at Yang Kao in confusion, and subconsciously shrank back.